Today on Locked On Rockies, two teams in two different positions, even though the similarities about them and around them are quite the same.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 20th day of June in the year 2023. I am your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. If your team is the Colorado Rockies, well, guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do around here, is talk about the Colorado Rockies each and every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We'll talk more about that later. Hey, also, if you want to catch Locked On Rockies and all your Colorado Rockies action, you can check out SiriusXM and the SiriusXM app. That's where you can find us. That's where you can find the Rockies play-by-play action as well. If you want to keep up to date with that, check it out on SiriusXM. Today on the Locked On Rockies podcast, we're going to kind of revisit and re-talk about something. We talked about this in a crossover earlier in the year there with Locked On Reds, and hopefully going to hop on with them tomorrow as well. Going to work on setting that up for a little post-game pod tomorrow. But we're obviously going to talk about, it's on full display last night, right? I think what you saw last night was it's exactly the worst case scenario, kind of. Not worst case scenario. I guess maybe I'm blowing it out of proportion, but it's another example of the Rockies having to look themselves in a metaphoric mirror and realize that this team is not progressing the way other teams in similar situations that have faced similar challenges that the Rockies have are, and they're not the same. They're not progressing the same. They're not getting better the same. The signs are not pointing necessarily the Rockies getting better yet. There are things to be encouraged by and things to like, but it's the Rockies mentality. There's still so many things that convolute the picture of the Colorado Rockies that you can't say the same for the Reds. The Reds said, we have a bunch of veterans. You're all traded except Joey Votto. That's what it felt like. Castillo's gone. Suarez is gone. They just packed him up and sent him to Seattle. It's basically all they were doing. That's where all gone. Go. Younger. Prospects. And then they get to call up one of the most exciting young guys in baseball, who is one of the fastest things on the diamond I have ever seen in my life. Him legging out that infield hit yesterday was insane. What the broadcast was saying, he can get up there in 9 strides. What? That's insane. That's exciting. That's the benefit of a rebuild. Look where Cincinnati was a year ago. They were a laughing stock, especially and rightfully furious by comments made by their front office for a team that's got a heck of a lot more history in baseball history than Colorado. And look at the difference. Look at where they're at now. Look at the way the GM talks. I saw him today. They're finally complimenting him for not putting his foot in his mouth, because he knows how important it is that the Reds are overperforming and being a better team than people thought they were going to be this year. That means the things in Cincy were working. That means the things that were worth gambling on were worth gambling on. And shocker, trading good players to rebuild your team in an important time is how you can get your team replenished and ready to go for your next run. And that's what's frustrating about this series. On top of the fact that I called how the game was going to go. What did I say yesterday? What did I say on the podcast yesterday? This series is going to come down to who can hit more home runs. And what happened yesterday? All home runs. That's how the scoring was done. The point is, every cliche in the book can be thrown at this series. two sides of a coin, two teams that the tale of two teams, all of them. But the reality really comes back to Cincinnati swallowed their pride, took it on the chin, and did what you have to do when it comes to rebuilding and replenishing your ball club. If you're not willing to spend the big bucks, if you're not willing to do what the big spenders do, you have to be willing to embrace this. And the Rockies' stubbornness and inactivity at the trade deadline has spelled doom for this team. Folks, the injuries are certainly a factor. They certainly have complicated and make this Rockies team worse. But even at full strength, I'm not ready to call this team more than 10 games. Are they really deep down going to be better than the Reds? The Reds are playing at this level with their young guys. They're not dependent on aging veterans. What the Rockies are experiencing right now is what the Cincinnati would be dreading would be happening this year. Things look up because they took the risk to see what they have, to see what is worth it. And it's been the approach, and it comes, and even the vet, the next Mr. Red, the next guy that is synonymous with Reds history, followed suit with that and took it upon himself to make sure that he wasn't going to come back and be a detriment to his team. And his name, Joey Votto, is the type of guy that you want to have. And honestly, at this point, it's what I want Chris Bryant to do. Get yourself Chris Bryant already told us he was 100%, though. Joey Votto buying in to the entire process and the entire philosophy of this team is so incredibly important because he knows the best way to contribute to this team is to be the best version of Joey Votto, because this team is winning right now. But you know what that team can definitely use a little bit more of? Veteran leadership and Joey freaking Votto. And what does he do? He goes out and he just starts ripping the cover off the ball, including a massive home run. That's what it should be like for Charlie Blackmon. And that's what the role he should be filling about all of the young guys. And you even have to put young in quotes. The Rockies' young guys and prospects and rookies and all these guys aren't all that young. All of the things that you look for, there's just, it does not add up. The Rockies mentality of saying that they draft and develop and they handle these things and they go internally and they bring these players, it just doesn't add up, because right now there's players that aren't reaching their potential, and the Rockies are also hanging on to veterans that aren't doing enough for them either. The Rockies need to embrace a true rebuild, like these other teams, like the Orioles did, like the Reds did. And the Reds, again, are overperforming right now. But you look and you see the potential. You see a team that's stealing bases. You see a team with one of the most exciting young guys in the league. You see a team that it needs more power. Joey Votto's going to come back, and then you can add in a little bit of veteran leadership or veteran power bats there. The Reds have the upside the Rockies wish they had, and Rockies fans wish they felt. Want to talk a little bit more about the significance of Joey Votto to this series and to the Reds in general, and just that type of leadership, or why I admire Joey Votto a ton, why he's always often been someone who I have really enjoyed seeing play. And why I think he's one of the best things to happen to baseball during his tenure. And I want to talk about, again, how I was right and how, again, on full display yesterday, the long ball is so important, and how that ties in once again to the frustrating Achilles heel of Austin Gomber. We'll do that, and we'll close out the show today here in segment number 3. Of course, if you did not hear the sad news about George Frazier passing away, longtime Rockies broadcaster, of course, Major League pitcher, World Series champ, and we'll take some time to speak about George Frazier as well to close out the show here in segment number 3. We will get to all of that and more coming up in segments number 2 and 3. First, though, got to tell you about our friends at Game Time. Game Time is your app savior when it comes to not missing out on events, games, theater, all sorts of cool stuff, especially if you're kind of a last-second person and want to be a little bit more spur of the moment and go out there and try to see you. If you can't quite make up your mind, Game Time's got you covered with killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guaranteed, so you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for all the fun you're going to have. One of my favorite features of Game Time is it shows you the picture of where you're going to sit, so you know exactly where you're getting your tickets. Makes me feel comfortable, and then I can get a better idea of where I'm going to be when I head to the arena or ballpark there. Forget planning months in ahead. Game Time's got those tickets right up to the day of the event. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast. We're free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. I'm Paul Holden, your Rockies fan extraordinaire. 28 years of Rockies love and these young but old bones when you're kind of thinking about getting older. And I've been bringing you your daily Rockies talk for 3 seasons now. We thank you for making us your first listen of the day. And shout outs to my everydayers like Nicholas Delvo, who says the Rockies don't have a winning mentality. It's an interesting way. My buddy Jambron, who's my Rockies fan, also he was basically responsible, big part of it. Just growing up with him and his family and being part of the season ticket package together. Tells me it's basically Dick Monfort's wants all the benefits of working out and being ripped and athletic, and that's kind of the metaphor for the good teams. Cutting weight, following the diet, strict plans and regimen. And whereas Dick Monfort doesn't want to give up the donuts, kicks his feet up and say, well, it worked in 2007. It's going to work again. And he has that mentality when it comes to getting better. Can't necessarily disagree. I really do wonder if Dick Monfort, I don't necessarily know. It's the question of the ultra wealthy and the people that hold all these things and things of that nature. Because it's like, does he care that much that the Rockies are the only, out of the major 4 sports teams? And well, even if you count the collegiate success of somewhere like DU, do you feel, does he feel any sort of pressure or curious about getting any sort of guidance from Kroenke and them? I'm curious, but I don't know. That's yet to be seen. I wanted to highlight, just how incredible Joey Votto is. This is a guy that I think Rockies fans can relate to, especially when it comes to greatness on an overall scale. And in the long term in the mainstream, it's a guy that's going to be knocked for his play, no championships and playoffs and Reds and blah, 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 blah. But the dude is an incredible consummate professional. And to take the approach that he did when it comes to recovering from a significant injury and to getting there and to taking every last step, that's incredible confidence in not only yourself, that's incredible confidence from the team backing you up. And it shows the significance and the importance of having people like a Joey Votto and some of these players that have spent their entire careers and mean a lot to the fans and the people around. Joey Votto is bringing extra spark to a team that's already white hot on fire in a completely up in the air division. That dude brings an immediate impact because his mentality and mindset about the game is the right way. He takes it serious. He goes and he understands the stakes and the severity and all of that. But he boils it back down to it being a game, and he boils it back down to understanding himself and his talents and his confidence completely, and embracing being who he is and embracing the Cincinnati Reds. Joey Votto is the exact type of person you want to embrace, especially when you're in not big media market teams. That dude is special. Dude is driving buses and picking kids up and doing things. He's getting in the broadcast booth. He's going along and hyping up his young guys and being a part with them and encouraging them and saying, you know what, right now, you, the young guys, the next generation, this era, my replacement is a better option for the Cincinnati Reds than me right now. That stuff matters. That's true leadership. And it's a true understanding of yourself, because look at that. He knows when we know Joey Votto's 100%, what does he do? He goes and he destroys the Rockies on his debut. He hits a ball well. That ball was not pushed merely over the wall, nor was his first base hit. That home run was absolutely demolished. And who knows really where the Reds will end up this season. But that's when it matters. That's when keeping it, that's the type of guy that matters. That's why when you're curious about, like, oh, Charlie Blackmon, are they going to trade him? And a certain other guy that we could talk about, but I don't always need to bring up. These guys can have impacts. But them as athletes need to make sure that they themselves take the time to embrace getting back to 100%. And I think that's a lesson for any player to look at and learn from, especially when you are a vet. I think Joey Votto just taught a lot of veteran players a valuable lesson about themselves and their careers and what they can do. Because if you take, and if it's a really interesting thing, just like with the Rockies and just like with the Reds' approach of moving on. If you take on those hard decisions, those ones that are going to take significant amount of times, that are going to drastically alter the landscape of multiple careers, including yourself, the landscape of the franchise, you have to be willing to still go through with those as long as you can see the product and the benefits on the other side. I just don't always think the Rockies share that same sentiment. Maybe they always do think that they can find the positives on the other side and always break through. And I really hope that this conversation kind of starts falling in line with how Chris Bryant's career in Colorado will end up. Because I'm desperately looking for Chris Bryant to be, because I know Chuck's already there and doing it, but I was hoping that Chris Bryant and his experience and his leadership was going to help lead these guys, the next wave of Rockies, into being with a different mindset, a different philosophy, an outside of the Rockies organization MVP World Series winner. It's unfortunate we haven't gotten to see that, because Joey Votto is an MVP on and off the field, 110%, and he means a heck of a lot to that club. One other big note from last night, home runs. They're really important. I don't want to rehash it too much, but we spent a significant amount of time yesterday talking about how bad the Rockies are at hitting our home runs. I guess bad is not, how few home runs the Rockies hit. And the one team that was ahead of them in the standings by one home run was the Reds. And I said exactly this. I said the difference in this game and this series will be who hits more home runs. And that was the exact tale of the tape yesterday. The conversation long-term on Austin Gomber, it needs to be reevaluated. I don't think anything's going to happen this year, but when he misses and he misses like he does, and the pitch mix he uses, the home run totals are just continuing to be a massive issue on both sides, especially there. That was a complete recipe of wow. The home run issues for the Rockies, giving them up and not hitting enough, even with Elias Diaz leaving the yard yesterday for the Rockies. He wasn't the only one, right? There was a couple of home runs. Wasn't it all home runs being hit yesterday? Let me make sure that I get everything up there. Yeah, Elias Diaz goes yard, and Mike Moustakas hit a double, and Jorge Alfaro hit a couple of doubles there. I believe this is. Let me make sure that I got that right. But yeah, only the Diaz single. But man, it's home runs are just. I wish it wasn't such a thing, because it's such a sticking point, and it's just a one of many red flags about this Rockies offense. We'll see if they can bounce back and split the series with the Red Hot Reds here tonight. Coming up, it sounds like Kyle Freeland got scratched due to his illness there. I think they said he got some sort of a virus. The Rockies still looking for win number 30 here, 39-46 compared to the 38-35 Cincinnati Reds, who have now, or whose impressive win streak continues. Let's shift focus. Let's shift gears. Let's remember a longtime Rockies legend, someone that if you're like me, you've heard a lot of his voice. And I just kind of want to talk a little bit about George Frazier here as well for our final segment of the day, to remember him after he passed away yesterday at 68. There. But we'll do that here coming up in segment number 3. Want to thank you for making Locked On Rockies your first listen of the day. You're free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. I should say we are free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. We also record our episodes live on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show, just like Nicholas Delbo and all my everydayers out there. Thank you so much. We had a ton of people checking out the pod yesterday, so thank you all for tuning there. Your subscription to Locked On Rockies is a massive, massive help. Easiest way to help the show grow is to click that subscribe button there and help us out. And you can check out Locked On Rockies and all the Rockies action on the SiriusXM app and SiriusXM. Just look up Locked On Rockies or Colorado Rockies, and you will be taken to where you need to go. Sad news in Rockies land yesterday. George Frazier passed away, 68 degrees. I keep wanting to say degrees. I don't know why. 68. Battling a recent illness, Drew Goodman says on the broadcast. And you can tell it was a somber tone in the booth yesterday. But say what you will about, especially because they talked about it. I mean, Frazier liked to embellish his stories. But why I like the Rockies broadcast and approach to their broadcast is because Frazier brought fun and to be solid in color commentary, you got to bring the color commentary. And sometimes that's talking about mayonnaise on a hot dog. Sometimes that's talking about, building up a story with a little bit flair and a little pump and, with a little bit of puff, just to make it a little bit more entertaining and engaging, because you know what? I had to watch some bad baseball sometime and had to make it better and more entertaining for us. I really do like the Rockies broadcast approach of making it an entertaining product for us. It sometimes it's a little bit, it's not what I'm hoping for, but on the flip side, I like that the Rockies broadcast, and Frazier especially, embrace the love of the game, the silliness of the game, the silliness of 162 games and a long regular season and doing stuff, and the art of good storytelling. Drew Goodman's job is there to tell you what's going on the field, break it down, and Frazier's there to comment on those comments and to kind of bring a little bit more. And he was able to get really good, insight about the players in the clubhouse, especially as the Post mentions, Todd Helton and Aaron Cook in their piece about him today. He was able to really, when you interview people, when you talk to people, when you have to do things, when you have to interview and interact with people, when you can make it entertaining and fun for not only the interviewee, but also the fans out there, that means you're good at what you do. So yes, George Frazier's analysis sometimes was a little embellished and stuff, but it was also, it paved the way for Spilly. It paved the way for the Rockies to embrace a mindset about, hey, the broadcast booth is important and we have to tell the information, but we can also highlight other things. We can also do some other things. And I think it's because of George Frazier's, love of storytelling and love of embracing, and love of putting on a show a little bit for the fans, helped pave the way for a Rockies broadcast booth that I think Spilly is a wonderful mix of fun and funny and super analytical and smart. I think it may, it opens the door for the Rockies to consider bringing on Jenny and allowing her to get into the booth as well and be able to call her games. I don't necessarily know if all that stuff is correlated, but it's just the idea of treating the broadcast booth like a place to put the people to let them shine. And for better or worse, and for other things, it's there. And the Rockies have done so. They have allowed their personalities that have been in the booth to be themselves and bring their take and their approach and their thoughts on the game. And I appreciate that. And I really do appreciate that George Frazier spent, it's tough work to be on that broadcast team. It's a grind to go through the season. I know that, a lot of people, that's the grind of work, but a lot of people have a lot of fond memories of hearing Frazier's voice, especially, backing up, classic moments in Rockies history. So rest in peace to George Frazier there, and to sending all of our wishes to the Frazier family and everyone there that's at AT&T Sports as well, because that they lost a longtime member of their family and community as well. But really appreciate it. It's hard to do what baseball broadcasters do. So wanted to say thank you to George Frazier for his dedication to the club and to the game of baseball. Folks, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. Free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. Hey, if you're looking for your second listen of the day, the Locked On Podcast Network's got you covered. Locked On Fantasy Baseball's got you covered with all your fantasy baseball needs. Locked On MLB takes you around the league. You can also check out all sorts of great Colorado sports coverage with the Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Nuggets, and Locked On Buffs podcasts. Folks, I'm Paul Holden, and this has been the Locked On Rockies podcast. We'll catch you on the Flippity Flip.